Well, good morning. A bit discombobulated this morning, but not too bad. One or two little glitches, and that's mainly because the old man has some difficulty with social media. Ask some of my friends. Anyway, here we are, and hopefully in a few minutes' time, for the magic of television, Andrew Sloan will pop up along with Bella, and we'll be able to have a decent chat about a variety of things. Now, some of the things I just do not understand, and I don't understand why we keep on losing, for instance, the headlines, newspaper headlines. The thing keeps switching off. That's probably because I've hit the wrong button. But it might be that we need to go to the headlines, the newspaper headlines first, and pick up when Andrew joins us. So let's do that because for once the war is not at top of the list. Not far behind, but it's not top of the list. In fact, this war seems to be the most peculiar war that I've ever come across. And there is some suggestion from GCHQ in one of the newspapers that, in fact, the people around Putin are lying to him. Every time that they lose a tank, they say that they've gained a victory. But anyway, we'll come to that in a few minutes and we'll have a discussion about that. Now, the Times, and here is the main theme throughout the papers this morning. Childbirth is not safe for women in England. And a report prepared for the NHS after the extraordinary number of deaths in a couple of hospitals in the UK and in England in particular, has come to the conclusion that they are not doing things properly and that the emphasis on natural childbirth is too great. Now, there we go. You see, it's trying hard to distract me this morning, these newspaper things. But that is the Times, which leads off with that. The Guardian, NHS maternity scandal. Police investigate 600 further cases. There have been well over 1,000 deaths that have caused concern at these particular hospitals in particular. And they mainly it's because of their emphasis on a natural birth rather than assisted by the medical profession. Now, let's see the little news thing that flashed down to see if there's anything local cooking, but not a great deal. The Eye carries on with that theme. Biggest maternity scandal in the history of the NHS. You know, it is strange. Well, we'll get to this in a minute. We'll have a rant about this in a minute. The Daily Mail, natural birth dogma left mothers and babies to die. In other words, the emphasis, once again, as it says, was on natural birth, and that a number of women died because they were left to fend that way and without any sort of assistance. The Mirror, stolen lives, maternity scandal. The Daily Express, a justice coming for every baby. In other words, what it's saying is that people are going to be held to account. And the Sun. Now, the Sun has decided to depart from that, and its readers are more interested, I suppose, in the great and the good, particularly if they strum a guitar. And the Sun is masked raiders in Beck's mansion, and Posh and David home as the thief prowls upstairs. It's Posh and David. All right, okay. It's not Mrs. Beckham. That's what I'm really getting at. I'm really on the periphery of this showbiz stuff. But anyway, the Sun departs with the fact that a masked raider broke in, and that does seem to be a theme as well. That people who are wealthy and live in big houses are much more vulnerable than they used to be. And of course, we get into funny areas, don't we? If you put a big Alsatian in the grounds who will take a bite out of anything that comes through the gate, you can be held responsible for damage and so on and so forth. We've just got a very peculiar system when it comes to that. And so defending yourself isn't that easy, I would have thought. I don't own a big mansion. I don't have to worry about it. I hope I don't anyway. The the Metro, the London paper, goes with the ordeal of a trans member of parliament who says he was raped and and abused and so on when he there was a transvestite. Is that the right word? Yeah, well, we just say trans nowadays, I suppose, in the way that we do, murder the English language. Why are we ashamed of the English language? Why is this new generation, ashamed of the English language? I have no idea. They seem to be ashamed of everything. You know, I mean, why are they here? Because history was potted with heroines and heroes? Come on, get real. And the fact of the matter is history is potted with villains. And don't make any mistake. Oh dear. Those people who strut around now with the flowers that are blue and yellow, those people who leave great messages of hope and support will be the first to condemn Ukrainians when we find out that a whole bunch of criminals were let in under the guise of being refugees, because it will happen. Come on, Keith, you'll say. How do you know it'll happen? Because it's happened in almost every other, not almost, every other society where there's been disruption, and the refugees have turned out to have a good quantity of criminals who immediately set up on their own. I mean, if there's one area that is stark reality is when I, as a journalist, did the police beat in Vancouver on the west coast of Canada. I can remember talking to a police superintendent and chatting about various crime, and we got on to Chinese crime. And he said that in his days, and they were my early days too, in the 60s and the early 70s in Vancouver, that the number of Chinese that performed criminal acts were so small they only had one file. And then after the Cultural Revolution, when the refugees flooded in, the whole scene changed, and he suddenly had a big strong box room full of files on Chinese crime. And in fact, my late friend, and I'll name him now because he is late, a man called Charles McLean, who was an incredible lawyer, and he was a barrister, and he took on cases for the Chinese community in which whole tongs were defending themselves because they'd fallen out with another tongue, crime on the streets from the Chinese community, which had never happened before. We suffered the same here in the 50s with the Hungarian Revolution. And it's a fact of life. Criminals are so clever. Well, look at the Albanians in France and on the continent. It's a fact of life is that the bad guys know how to work the system, and the rest of us don't know how to stop them. Anyway, the Financial Times has gone with Germany and Austria prepare gas rationing in a standoff with Russia. In other words, Russia are beginning to tweak the tails of the recipients of their gas, who are now trying to sanction much of it, and they're winning the battle of sanctions when it comes to energy. So Germany and Austria have said, well, look, if you're going to play that game, what we'll do is we'll make sure we don't buy as much from you, and that'll cut your horns. Well, let's see how that manages to pan out as well. I don't have much faith in those sort of things. The Daily Telegraph, Putin's aides are lying to him, says GCHQ chief. Now, if anybody should know, and if he's been quoted accurately, the GCHQ chief should be able to tell us what's going on behind closed lines. And he says that the acolytes around Vladimir Putin are telling him porkies, where every time that a Russian plane is shot down or a Russian tank goes over a mine, they're saying that there are two more that are busy advancing on Kiev. And how is he to know? He needs his generals, doesn't he? He needs his military staff to advise him. And according to our spy network, they're giving him false information. Now, the thing is, with spies, you have to watch out because they give false information to false information to false information. So in the end, you have no idea who is telling the truth. But we have to accept the fact that perhaps for the moment GCHQ have got it right, and that in fact some of the losses that Russia has sustained and setbacks have not been passed on to Putin. On the contrary, that they've been telling him, painting quite a good picture. The Star, he fought until the end, and they highlight a cancer victim. The death of there was a campaign to try and get money to help a chap called Tom Parker, and he had a terminal brain tumor, and unfortunately he's at long last died from it, and so the Star says he fought until the end and gives a story of a brave individual. And perhaps in some ways, sad though that story is the sort of story that we need on a morning when all sorts of other things are. And there's nothing about the economy this morning, but it looks as if that's going to end up in a fine mess. And that you will find at the supermarket. Okay, well, we haven't seen Andrew yet. Let's hope he's not having problems getting through. But he's a very, very hard-working man. And a great friend to Mirador Television, and I hope that it's. I know I dropped by the shop yesterday to have a quick chat, and he was busy with. Well, there were people lined up to get into his barber's chair, and I would tell you that it is a decent experience, apart from having a decent haircut. And I'm going there tomorrow to have a few locks shaved off. It is a lovely place to go to. It's small, it's quaint, but you get greeted with some form of drink. And I'm happy to say that he makes sure that not only is the chat good, but also the hospitality. And I must say that I've sometimes dropped in and said, Andrew, don't give me a haircut. They give me one of your coffees with a little shot of Jack Daniels in it. Ah, the luxuries of somebody who's in a position of power. Ho, 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 ho. Can I just say something? You know, what's going on at the moment shows the value of media, good media that doesn't actually paper over the cracks. Well, Mirador doesn't paper over the cracks. We may be small, we may be only getting to, we know of, 3,000 people or so, but we're growing all the time, and we get people each day saying that they found us. But in the scheme of things, we are small. We call ourselves the biggest little television channel in the world, and that we are. And we are so fiercely independent. We have suffered from nobody wanting to actually support us. But we need support. We need community support. Yes, we are commercial in the sense that we try hard not to go to the public funds to get support. We try to make our own way. But coming out of lockdown has been absolute hell. And while some people tried to help us, there are a lot that just decided enough is enough, and they simply didn't want to know us. Well, we are back, and not only that, but a brave new world. We're always having brave new worlds because television is a medium that changes. And our brave new world is coming along in April, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. Aha, I spy coming into the holding room, shall we call it, the green room, if we want to be polite, is Andrew Sloan. And, you know, he's such a hero in so many ways. I don't know how he gets the time to barber, to be quite honest with you, because he's always helping somebody. So, add to the stream. Good morning,
Hello.
Andrew.
Good morning. You okay?
Yes, indeed I am, and all the better for seeing you.
Oh,
Just telling everybody about Grizzlies. I keep on urging people to get there, and then when I come down to visit you, I can't get in through the front door because you become so popular now. The place is always jammed. But we must encourage people to come and have their hair done there. As I was telling them, it's a social centre. The chat is great. The people are great. The haircut is great. And if you are very, very nice to you, the Jack Daniels in the coffee is great.
Yeah, it's been really busy actually. We've had to turn quite a few people away on Saturday because so many regulars now just book and then book their next appointments and stuff. So if people just sort of walk in now, really, it's getting a bit tight to fit people in, with three of us on the go. So it's great that encouraging people to book because then people have that, reliability. But yeah.
Well, economic growth I'm always interested in, as you know. Is you've got a third chair in there that you sometimes use. Is that third chair likely to start to become a regular?
Yeah, so we have Nick in on Fridays and Saturdays, and sort of covers if people have sort of time off or whatever. Ollie will be have time off, but he's going to start doing Mondays for me as well. So we're going to open on a Monday. I won't work a Monday because I need a day to do admin. But yeah. So and then fingers crossed it will be three of us full time really all week really.
That's
so yeah,
great. That's absolutely great. Nobody deserves success more than you. Because I really, let's embarrass you, because there are businessmen and there are businessmen. There are some businessmen that simply take out of the community, and there are others that put back in. And you're looking this morning at a man who puts a lot back into the community in many, many, many ways. Now, having said that, where's my girlfriend?
She's just here. Bella,
well,
come
let's
here.
have a look.
Up here, come on. She wasn't very well last night. Up,
oh
come
dear,
on.
not again.
Come up here.
She's been a little poorly lately, hasn't she?
Up, come. Yep. Up here she comes. Hey.
Oh, good morning, Bella. Good morning,
There
Bella.
she is.
Leave me alone, she says. It's too early in the morning for all this fuss. Now,
yeah, she was a bit unwell. She was a bit unwell yesterday when we got home last night. She was sick twice. So I don't know why, because we said she wasn't very well last week. So we were feeding her chicken and rice. There was apparently a dog sort of gastro thing going around.
So it's not just her.
No, God, there was quite a lot of people saying. A lot of clients were coming in.
That's good. Is it shows that she's not ill individually, as it were. Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's a lot of the clients were saying that something was going around. So so that was quite good. I was quite relieved at that. But we've got a client who's a vet was saying, oh yeah, just a boiled chicken and rice, just do that for a few days and stuff. And she was sort of back to normal. But then we changed her flavour of food. She always had like a chicken and rice, a chicken and veg based food, which is like organic. And we changed it to a salmon one. So I don't know if it's that she just doesn't like it or doesn't agree with her. So we've had to go back to her original one.
Chicken.
So
yeah.
But yeah, that's all that. Yeah, it's been quite.
Just let me tell Bella. Bella, I lived in British Columbia for 15 years, which is the land of the salmon, and the only way I can eat salmon is out of a tin.
Right.
So there you are. We've got something in common. We don't really like salmon. We do like chicken.
I don't really eat fish really because I've never I think I choked on a fish bone when I was young, I think. So I do eat fish. Okay, this is quite boring for everybody, but because you have to eat fish, don't you, at least once a week? But yeah, I'm not a big fan. Anyway, that's all very boring. So you okay though?
Yes, I am, and I wanted to talk about law and order this morning. But before I do that, I always like to give you a chance to, because you talk to hundreds of people over a week. I mean, you must talk to thousands over a year. So you get a very good snapshot of what's bothering people and what they're talking about. So what's the current chat?
Cost of living. Cost of living is a real worry. But on the other flip side of it, it's everyone, because the sun's been out, isn't it? Obviously, it wasn't yesterday, it was hailing. But like last week, everyone was in a really good mood. It made such a difference. Everybody coming in, it was great. And now the longer evenings. So it's really nice that people are focusing on the positive. So people aren't really, because we swapped from having sort of BBC Six music on, which has the news on every hour, obviously. But it was finding that it was getting really depressing because it was all obviously Ukraine. It was still bits trying to bring COVID back, chatting about that, and obviously everything against the Met Police. So it was like, this is too much. So we just put on smooth chill playlists, So it was just a bit more chilled, the music and stuff, and clients weren't really talking about it. So clients were quite keen just to talk about the positives, and I really noticed that actually, there's a definite change in people, which was great,
Yeah.
rather than coming and going, But then we'll touch on subjects about obviously, Putin and all the ridiculousness of stuff, and the awfulness of Ukraine, but people weren't really, you know, um, getting too down with it, which was great. So it's sort of the only negativity thing, or the worry, I would say, is cost of living for
Right.
everybody,
Right.
because it doesn't seem like we've got any power against that. Like the shop broadband, I've got a thing this week that's gone up an extra £8.49 a month now, but they're putting on extra services which I don't use and don't need. But and you think, God, that's quite a jump from like £29 to sort of 38.
Yeah.
£8 difference on a £22 a month contract. So that was a worry. So a lot of people are trying to just keep the positive, I think, and almost blinker, not really, even though we've all noticed everything in shopping for a long time, we've been talking about this, haven't we? Going up a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
and being more savvy with stuff. So that seems to be the main thing. But people, this desperation thing of, I can do the holiday, which I haven't done for 2.5 years. I'm doing that this time. So it's this push to almost break that cycle. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That seems to be in the air a bit with everybody.
When I was at CNBC, which is almost 20 years ago now, I suppose, I came across the word stagflation, and
Oh,
the first time that I've seen it used was this last week. And I'd sort of forgotten what stagflation was, so I looked it up and I chatted to a couple of people. But basically, where we're caught is that there's lack of growth, but rising prices. And for a lot of external reasons. I mean, not least of which is war. So it would appear that the big problem is when prices start to rise for an external influence, but wages doesn't. That means that we get a yawning gap between what we're bringing in and what we're expected to pay out.
right.
The other thing, Andrew, is I suppose that you and I would even only just cast an eye over the Financial Times, although we would be beaten over the head if I admitted that to Stuart Dolby, who is an ex Financial Times journalist. But not many people buy it, the ordinary man in the street. So they don't actually, sometimes they use the term markets, etc. But nobody quite understands the power of markets. We talk about governments, we talk about wars, we talk about the military, but the real power lies with the huge amount of money that sloshes around in the markets. And I remember speaking to, or interviewing actually, many years ago, a man who worked for the Economist Intelligence Unit. And he was talking about a Southeast Asia country which decided to ignore international exchange rates. And he used the phrase, he said, the markets rose up and spanked them. And I thought, what a very illustrative thing. And that's exactly, as you say, nobody really understands the markets, and they are rising up and they're spanking us for a decade and a half of wanton, unbridled spending, and it's all coming home to roost.
Well, isn't it the thing? So when they say the markets and things, does that mean like the money that's in the ether in the stock exchange, so electronically in a sense? So does that mean that when we spend money, or money that gets, like we write a check and it takes 3 days to clear, etc. So they make the money on your money, don't they? Does
Yes.
it mean that? Yeah, I've got a client who, well, quite a few, but who work for American Express, and they were saying something like every time you use your debit card or credit card, we make like a lot of money on it. So is that part of the whole move to cashless thing as well, cashless society? Because
Yes.
the more electronically people spend, I mean, that people spend more if it is electronically on a card or PayPal or
Yeah.
contactless. Anyway, I think it's something like 60% more you spend. But so is it that? So that's because
Well,
that's
I think
making
that
the ether a lot of
credit
money,
cards
isn't
and
it?
banks and so on and so forth is so that's one small step for mankind, or whatever the saying was. One huge step for humankind, and it's much the same. Yes, it does make a difference because we're all putting our tuppence worth into the markets, but the markets are fueled by all sorts of things, not least of which is every time you look at a factory belching out smoke, that's part of the economy, that's part of contributing to the markets. It's this vast amount of
We haven't
money.
got any factories anymore, though, have we? Because Thatcher closed them all down, right, kids?
Well, true, but nonetheless, there are still a lot of manufacturers, and smoke or not. But anyway, we won't get into an expose or an explanation of the markets, except to say that the amounts of money that swirl around just in the city of London alone on a daily basis are billions.
This is the thing, isn't it?
Billions.
Like, you hear about all these things, or whether it's Russians or Chinese or Saudi Arabia or something, all the money that gets thrown around, the football players being paid certain amounts, or they're buying Newcastle United for X amount, or they're just doing the Formula One in Saudi Arabia and things like this. You think, God, there's a lot of money out there, isn't there? Meanwhile, the rest of us are going, oh God, actually, God, squash has gone up 20p or whatever, or our fuel, my God, how are we going to afford to do all this? Or we're compromising. So it feels like behind the scenes, there's all this going on, isn't there? And people have got private jets and they're going to Mykonos and they're doing all this and they're loving it all. And they managed to buy a second property and they've done this and which they rent out. And meanwhile, like everybody else, we're the ones almost peddling this, struggling and being told. You know what I mean? But
yes, indeed.
Speaking personally, it's too. I don't know if it's just getting older or what, or fatigue, or.
Shush. We do not use the word old on this program.
I said older, yeah. But it's the thing
I'm the icon for the aged.
See, that's it. You see, you're my hero. But it's like we've got our life going on here, haven't we? Like what we need to do, and then something else comes along, and so we're dealing with this thing, and then something else comes along, we're dealing with that. Whether it's petrol or cost of things, or worried about this or external pressure from something else, and we've got all this stuff over us, which we're making our brains crunchy, and then meanwhile we just want to go get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, and just for a second, just function a bit. It just seems to be we're all bombarded with stuff at the moment, aren't we?
Yes, indeed.
Do you know what I mean? There's always something to worry about, isn't there? Like, there's something. It's either this or that. It's like my computer, my MacBook died, obviously, and then so you go right now. I've got to sort another one of those out. Then you've got to get a backup. Then you've got to leave it. Then you've got to get someone to put that on because it's not as easy now because Apple decided to get rid of USBs. So you just go, right, okay, now I'm going to have to buy another cable and adapter, right? Now the wireless printer's not talking to the internet, and so I can't plug it in because it's not a USB. So you're dealing with that before you can then do your normal stuff, isn't it? And then you get the car serviced or MOT'd, and then they're like, oh, you need 4 new tyres on it. And you go, right, that's £400. It just seems to be there's always something we're all juggling with.
Yes. It always seems to me that I'm earning £40 and spending 41.
Yeah. And it's like, and then but then there's another thing. It's like it's tied to the whole fear of missing out thing, isn't it? But there's other things Martin Lewis is a god. I love him. Money saving expert. However, this constant thing of, oh God, you've got to be checking this, you've got to be checking that. Are you in the right deal? Make sure you sign up for that before your contract ends. It seems like if you're not on top of everything, you're then out of contract, or you miss out on a deal because that runs out, or you didn't know about something for some reason. So there's all that added extra pressure as well of we need to be checking this and that. So everything's become way too complicated and way too, if all of a sudden Wi-Fi stopped and no one could access Wi-Fi.
I think my favorite bugaboo, computers. Every day I turn around, there's a computer doing something stupid. And then being blamed because the human has got it wrong.
An algorithm or something like that is generated something, or you're based on so and so now, and da. So it's that, and you go right. So if Wi-Fi suddenly stops, and you go right, how would you get hold of that customer? Like there was somebody talking the other day, the CEO who's on Dragon's Den, 27, Stephen Bartlett. I love him for 27. He's so rich because he made an app or something. But he's really interesting actually to talk to when he interviews people because he's quite hot on what makes people tick really in life. Right. So he's quite good like that. But he what's my train of thought now? He was saying that. So he was asking the founder of Phones for You, that was like one of the first big mobile phone people years ago, about stuff. And he was talking, the founder was talking about how he lost the contract with Motorola or something. And he said, yeah, I came to work and, then we just got told then that would stop. And he said something about an email. He said, of course, you would have had email back then and stuff. So I don't know how you found that out, but I was chatting away. But he couldn't comprehend without email or messaging how somebody would get hold of somebody. And I was shouting at the radio going, well, they'd have set a meeting up. They'd have probably made a phone call. It might have been a letter to go, let's make a meeting or something. There are, you take away your mobile phone or messaging or email or a website. How else would you go and connect with people? Right, you'd call them or you would write to them. Like John Lewis, who wrote to me but to confirm, the credit check thing to buy the laptop. They said, we're trying to get hold of you. So we wrote to you to then have to contact us to do the code. But they wrote to me because I thought, well, I've got no junk email. No one called me. So there is other ways of connecting with people outside of all this. So,
and I think back then too, we didn't want everything immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, I've had people email me, and then 5 minutes later they email again. Didn't you get the email?
No.
I mean,
people
in a
are
more
using
leisurely
it.
age, it's going to be 3 days before you got the damn thing back, and that was
yeah.
fast.
This is it. And plus, people, if it's desperate, like on a day off, I don't take my phone out with me. So if it's like, I emailed you a thing, and you think, right, but if they want you, I always think it's like I turn my phone on airplane mode at night, so I put my phone in the kitchen at night. So if people want you, they'll call you, won't they? So
that's right.
they have the landline. If there's a huge issue, they can call. But it's people are bothering people too much. There is a thing in France, isn't there, where they're not allowed to contact people outside of working hours, work people.
Well, I think we should have that here. I mean,
I do.
the worst villains are the financial institutions. I mean, there is one credit card which actually stems out from outside the country, so I won't name it, but probably people can guess, who actually will call you on a Sunday. I was very tempted because I got a call from this particular institution while I was in church, and I almost wanted to say to the congregation, "Hey, hold up, stop your prayers for a minute, because I want you to listen. What it typifies our modern society, and this is what we should be praying to get rid of." Anyway, Andrew, we're going to take 30 seconds or so just to go down to Grange Park, and then we'll come back and have. You've got a time for 5 minutes?
No, I literally have to go because Lewis Road they've dug up, so it's taken me twice as long to get to work at the moment.
Thank you for being here. I'll undoubtedly be in touch with you later in the day because we make sure we haven't got a crisis of some sort. But we live on crises, and I'll tell you, there are two ways to get out of a crisis. One is talk to Andrew, and the other is to have a coffee with a Jack Daniels in it.
Great. All right, Keith. See you later. Adios. Take care, Chuck.
Well, let's have just a quick look at the weather. It's much cooler today, much cooler. It's down to 8 degrees a maximum. We got sunny intervals, but a fresh breeze, which cools things down. We can expect an extended stretch of sunshine around about 5 o'clock this afternoon, lasting to early evening up until about 8 o'clock. And now that we've got the lighter nights, we might get some benefit of that, but not a great day. And the chance of rain, No, not particularly high. Well, I don't know. A chance of 19% in the middle of the day, noon, around noon, 1 o'clock. But that's it. Right now, it's let's see. It's 20 minutes. It's 8:40, in fact, exactly, and it's Thursday, the 31st of March, the last day of the month. Before we go into that famous day tomorrow, the 1st of April, and that will take us through to the end of a week, and we can then start to see new things in a new month and a fresh idea coming up to the week after, when we can enjoy a long weekend with the festival of Easter, which I got wrong. I thought it was this week, and I said to one of our students, you don't have to come in if you don't want to, because it's Easter. And that's because I listened to one of my colleagues who got it wrong as well. We're always getting things wrong over a pint. The only thing is that he's a specialist in energy, and I'm a specialist in BS. Between us, we normally do start to get it right. Let's see, there are things cropping up. But my rant this morning has got to be over law and order. We have gone through almost 2 decades of trying to be nice. Don't smack, don't shout, treat gently, be nice, be kind, and it'll all come okay. And of course, the exact opposite, as a few cynical souls, such as myself, said that it won't. Human nature isn't that way. Human nature needs a crime and punishment system. Make the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime. And now, at long last, after a long time of failure at Scotland Yard, in which innocent citizens have been badly injured and their families are still suffering from it, and which the crime rate in the capital has risen, and attendantly also throughout the country, and through silly nonsense ideas of every copper should have a degree, is at long last, I think, even if not in the corridors of power, then in everyday thinking, a new realization is starting to come good. And the focus of my attention this week was the issue of Will Smith. And everybody's going into, oh, what a naughty thing he did. He smacked one of his co-presenters on what is it, the Oscars or something, where the brave actually give awards to the brave. Nobody else has any say in it. It doesn't matter who's who. I mean, okay, I really am cynic if I don't consider the Oscars. It's a nice glittering occasion. That's what it is. It's a nice glittering occasion, and I'm all for glittering occasions. But meaningful, no, not a bit of it. It sometimes highlights a decent film, but I've seen Oscar-nominated movies that have actually been dreadful because the good have decided in their wisdom that it was good. Anyway, Will Smith smacked somebody right in the ceremony because he insulted his wife. Smith, his sponsors pulled out and all sorts of things and nonsense. But I've started to hear people in the streets say, I would have smacked him too for doing something like that. To feel that he can humiliate somebody, particularly for something like alopecia, is the loss of hair, is absolutely appalling. Whoever this Rocky guy is, I don't know who he is. I mean, that's just a name to me. Will Smith is a fine actor. And I believe he used to be on one of the sitcoms in the United States, and I remember him from there. And you could tell that he was going to come along and be a good one. But to me, that's exactly what he should have done. And I've started to hear people now, and particularly in the fact that law and order, and for that matter, the law has been failing us for so many years. Ridiculous decisions, failure to stem crimes and crime waves, all sorts of excuses as to why we don't have coppers on the beat. And long last, I'm starting to hear in the streets and in the byways is it is about time that we started to get tough. And people who are not so old saying a clip around the ear did me no harm whatsoever. Do we want to go back to where we can slap children? Probably not. But it's gone too far where we don't do anything. Nothing. And that includes the people at the top. All right, you can say, why pick on the police? Because you got a whole raft of civil servants. You got a whole raft of politicians. You got a whole raft of bankers. You got a whole raft of all sorts of people in industry who are totally and utterly useless, badly trained, not aware, don't know what their customers are about. They're just a complete disaster. And because there were no external threats like war, like pestilence, like famine, we've just let it ride. Tut, 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 we've said. Isn't that dreadful? Put the paper down and gone back to whatever we were doing. Well, now the chickens are coming home to roost. And not least of which is the headlines this morning about hospitals that have allowed, because of dogma, children to die, with nobody saying a thing. And I can remember at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody wanted to bang a pot for the NHS. And I was very unpopular by saying, I'm not going to bang a pot for the NHS. Individually, the doctors on the front line, the nurses on the front line, the health workers and the supporters, individually are terrific people in the main. But the NHS is a monster that is getting it wrong regularly. And now it appears that while we've been banging the pots to say how marvelous it is, it's been allowing thousands of babies to die because of dogma. That's the sort of thing that we've been ignoring. And we cannot ignore it anymore. Now, change takes a long time. Change does not take place overnight. So don't expect a copper back on the beat soon. But once the thinking changes and they get rid of the dross, like the Cressida Dicks of this world, then you do start to see movement. And in law and order, I hope that we see movement. I've got a friend, an ex-senior judge who goes to many parts of the world to try and help establish proper rule of law. And yet in this country, we have managed to let rule of law slip by so that all sorts of bad things are happening in our community and we don't know about it, or we stick our head in the sand, or we allow those people who perpetrate it to actually get away with it. I keep on hearing these popinjay politicians, when they get onto the stumps, what we've done about mental health, the answer is sweet bugger all. What we've done about the homeless, the answer is sweet bugger all. What we've done about reform of the NHS, the answer is sweet bugger all. What we've done about reforming the police and making them more efficient, the answer is sweet bugger all. All they're good at is talking. Well, everybody's got to be good at something. But we cannot allow things to happen that are bad for our society without some sort of redress. And our politicians have let us down dreadfully. I was reading the little conservative paper that came through. I don't know who's writing it, and I don't know who prints it, but it is a shabby, poor illustration of information sheets. Poor, really poor, which reflects the level of political prowess at Westminster, and I then assume locally. How on earth anybody could let anything like that go, I have no idea. But it's shameful. And because it is shabby, it reflects the political process, a shabby political process. You keep putting out your little bits and pieces, right? What do? You get somebody who's a card-carrying member to write something. They write it badly. It's laid out badly. It communicates badly, and 9 times out of 10, it's something that is worrying them, not us. If that's the way you want to go, believe me, you are losing credibility faster than sand shifting through the whatever. I'm very bad at analogies, metaphors, and all that sort of stuff. But if you can't get it right, don't do it. It would be better for our politicians to be people of mystery rather than hold themselves up as the shabby, shallow people that they are by some of the stuff that they put out purposely in public. I had to put that paper, along with several others, I may say, into the waste paper bin. It just offended me looking at it. But it also, because I've had quite a lot to do with public relations, is also realized that nobody understands what PR is about either anymore. It's flim-flam. It didn't make me realize. I've realized it for quite some time. It's flim-flam, telling lies. That's what it's about. And now it appears that Mr. Putin is lost and being caught out telling lies, telling him how well it's going on the Eastern Front, when in fact what's happening is they're getting hammered by the resistance in Ukraine. All right, Keith. Yes, I know. Life cannot be perfect, and nor should it be. But when we get yawning gaps in our society, then somebody somewhere has got to take notice. And it's tiny little operations, media operations like Mirador, that start some of these things. Stuart Dolby, with the energy crisis, was weeks and weeks ahead. How many people heard him? About 3,000. And our community is quite willing to let this die. We put out an appeal for funds. we got 150 quid, 100 from Southeast Asia and 50 from northern Macedonia, who are doing quite well in the World Cup at the moment. Nobody locally, nobody, even my friends, didn't bother to put their hands in their pocket. Now, I've got to put an exception there because one or two did in the past, and I'm very grateful for that. But generally speaking, we don't care. And we don't care about our loss of freedom. We don't care about the voices. We've lost our local newspaper. The local radio stations don't emanate from here. They emanate from Eastbourne, or Peacehaven, or Brighton. And the moment that we want one for ourselves, because there are some people who are very good at radio here, very talented, is the bureaucracy says, you can't have that, you might be a threat down the road. What happened to the open market? What happened to all those principles that we pushed in Ukraine that put people out of work? What happened to those principles? What's happened to us as a society? We cannot tell the truth about anything. We cannot stop hiding behind false premises. We cannot stop allowing people to die and then saying, tut, tut, tut. Well, there are several thousand innocent young lives, all because that's the society we become. And don't try to hide. It's not the hospital. It's us. We don't give a damn. And until we start giving a damn, we can expect society to start to crumble. But at long last, perhaps, because now there is a realization that the police aren't the police. They don't represent law and order. That the banks don't represent the true economic situation that we find ourselves in. That dictators can still wave a magic wand and walk over a border unopposed. That's the society that we're in. And who created it? We did. Remember that remarkably powerful, and I have to paraphrase because I can't give you the exact quote, but it was from a victim, or at least a survivor of the Holocaust, who said something like this: first they came for the communists, and I said nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing. And then they came for the intellectuals, and I said nothing. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to say anything. I think we're rapidly approaching that situation in our society, and it's time that somebody somewhere pulled their finger out of their backside and got cracking. And it ain't going to come from our political class. What a useless bunch they are. All they're interested in is their dogma, their politics, and their strutting. And that's gone far enough. Just the same as lack of policing has gone far enough. And NHS that lets people die has gone far enough. Time for a reckoning. Time for us to stop and say, hold up, hold up. What's going on here? We need some explanations. And with the explanations, we need a new plan, not a plan B, a new plan, so that we can look forward, at least our children can look forward to a just and decent society, which we have managed to screw up right now. Yeah, I love these rants. It gets the blood going, and particularly on a nice morning, which it is at the moment. So that's it. We'll now we will say toodle pip. We will say toodle pip, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And then we will look forward to seeing whether you can spot all the jests and the japes that normally take place in media. But let's be careful after we've enjoyed those, and so we should enjoy them, that we don't ignore what's bubbling under the surface. Many, many serious things which we fail to address to date. Toodles.